welcome to the Art of Being Human. We've talked about parenthood, being prepared to be parents, helping your children accept the fact that there's going to be a new brother or sister in the family. And so now that we've done that, I want to take you to the next level, which is conception. What really happens in conception? How does a woman become pregnant? And what happens in the weeks of development from conception to birth? So this is what I want to focus on today. And so I'm going to start off by showing you some sketches that I've made out, some charts that I've made out. And so we can take a look here and we'll get started with this. Now I've had this in before. This is the human body. And the reason that I brought this in is that even though we're dealing with reproductive organs today, the whole body is involved somehow in conception. So let me just run through this, and for a lot of you this is just going to be old hat because you remember all of this stuff from your science classes and so forth, but let me just go through it. So this is a human body. The different organs, the major organs are going to be the brain, which is right here, and in the brain, the pituitary gland, which is right here. There are glands and hormones that are created from the brain that help in the process of conception. Then you have the thyroids, the parathyroids, the heart. This would be the aorta. This would be the liver. The pancreas. Now I have to say I didn't put in the stomach because the pancreas is behind the stomach, so I left the stomach out. This is the pancreas, and these little ones here are the adrenal glands, which sit right on top of the kidneys. And then we have the reproductive organs down here. This is for the female because this is what I want to concentrate, is conception and the production of a baby. This part right here is going to be the uterus, this roundish part. It looks like an upside down pear. And then these two little things are going to be the fallopian tubes. The little round parts underneath the fallopians are going to be the ovaries. This is going to be the cervix, and this is going to be the vagina. All will be very active in the process of having a baby. So let's take this one down and look at the next one. This is just, I took this from a book. It's like a magnified version of the reproductive organs of the female. Here again, this is the uterus. These are the fallopian tubes, and they're kind of, but not exactly attached to the ovaries. This would be the cervix, although they didn't write it in. And this whole area is the uterus, and this is the vagina. Now, this is a sperm. And this is the egg. The egg of the female is called the ovum, or it can be just called an egg. And it's huge in comparison to the sperm. The sperm is so tiny that it cannot be seen without magnification. And the tail of the sperm, which causes it to swim in the vagina to get to the egg, the tail of it is 10 times longer than the head. So if this were to be accurate, and I haven't measured it to see that it is a sperm head, and the tail is 10 times as long as that. But you can see that it's hard to, that the ovum is a lot larger. So let me take this down. Whoops. Here's just another sketch that I made. Uterus, cervix, vagina, fallopian tubes, and the ovaries, sperm, we're trying to reach the egg. And the egg is hundreds and hundreds of times larger than the sperm. And I'll show you more about that. Okay. Only one, now here, this is an overview. I mean, there are a lot of things that are different than what I say, but I'm only giving you an overview because my purpose in doing this is for you to understand the process. But what I really want to focus on is the psychological changes and how you deal with pregnancy. And we're getting into the various ages of individuals and the problems that they have in the various ages and how that gets resolved. So here you have it. This I kind of took the measurements from a book. This is one egg or one cell, and you could see it's hundreds and hundreds of times larger than a sperm. One sperm will get there before the rest gets there. And then when the sperm enters the egg, it is consumed with the egg. I mean, the egg is completely surrounded, and the two become one cell. We would say that the sperm is a cell and the egg is a cell, but each one has only half of the chromosomes and the genes required to make a human being. As soon as the sperm enters the cell, now the two become one, and it has all of the characteristics that you need for the human being. So basically, you have a human being not developed yet, but there it is. You have all of the genes, you have all of the chromosomes, you have everything needed in order to have the human being. But this is like to show you the example of how much larger the egg is than the sperm. The sperm cannot be seen without magnification. However, the egg is so large, it's one of the largest cells of the body, and the egg is large enough that without magnification you can see it. But it's going to just be like small pinpoints, like a pencil point, a very, very fine pencil point, just little tiny, tiny specks like. But that is an egg. You can see it with the unaided eye. But the sperm, there's no chance you can see it without some kind of magnification. So I just want you to get that idea of the difference. Now, when conception has occurred, they're going to have the baby growing an umbilical cord. This is just like maybe a baby that's 2 or 3 months old. I mean, it doesn't even look quite human yet, but they go through that process of not looking human, and then gradually, as they become more complicated, they get a more human look to them. So this would be the little thing that's going to become a human being. You can see the leg buds. They are called buds, by the way, because the legs are just like little tiny stumps. They haven't grown their toenails or their individual toes yet, and also the little stubs for the arms. But here you have the umbilical cord toward the stomach, and it attaches to a placenta. This placenta keeps the baby with nutrition and takes care of the baby. This is the amniotic sac which surrounds the baby. I'll go through that process in a minute because I want to take you to the first one. So I think what I'll do is let me take that second because I want to explain something to you that's important, that I think is really important. This is the one I want. So we're going back to this one for now. What happens in conception is that the male produces millions of sperm, and the egg is produced one at a time. The ovaries will produce one egg. Now, what you have to remember is that women have all of the egg cells that they will ever have. When they're born, they have them all. However, they're not mature yet. And so when the little girl gets to the point when they're mature enough to start being more or less like an adult, or they're mature enough for the reproductive organs to work, the ovaries will produce an egg. 1 month, one ovary will produce an egg. The next month, another ovary will produce an egg. So it alternates, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then when the sperm come up to make the woman pregnant, they will probably join somewhere in the fallopian tube, and then they head down for the uterus. Now the uterus has been prepared for this because it's built up a blood supply. It's built up everything that a baby would need. The placenta isn't there yet. That's grown after a person becomes pregnant. But it takes 3 to 7 days for an egg that has joined with a sperm to get to the uterus. When it gets to the uterus, it implants itself. And that takes, as I said, from 3 to 7 days. What's going to happen is that the uterus is going to stretch to accommodate the size of the baby, so there may be some cramping. When the egg is released, it's called ovulation. And what happens is the egg matures and it breaks out, it ovulates, it breaks out from the ovary, gets away from the ovary, then it starts to travel down the fallopian tube. It meets the one sperm that it's going to accept. Now, normally it's only one sperm that gets to join with the egg. And then they travel, and then they get down to the uterus. The uterus will expand as time goes by because the baby's going to grow and need more space. Then after that, a placenta will grow and will nourish the baby. And at the time of birth, this cervix here stretches and it becomes the birth canal. And then the baby goes out the birth canal. So that's kind of the process. So let me get back here to where I was before. As the baby grows, it becomes more and more human-like. It doesn't look particularly human, but it is because it has the chromosomes and it has the genes and it has everything it needs to be a human being. Now, if there's something wrong, I mean, hundreds of things can happen. If there is something wrong, the baby usually just naturally aborts. It's not going to grow full term. It's just going to die. And then it's just going to pass off, and then the uterus is going to shed. Here would be an older fetus, an older baby, with the head. You can see things are much more defined. The umbilical cord, the placenta nourishing it. This is the amniotic sac, and that's just the general sketch of things here. Now, when the baby is 13 weeks old, it's only 3 inches. When the baby is 2 months old, 8 weeks old, it's only the size of a grape. It's just very, very small. It's like 1 inch. So at the end of the first trimester, the pregnancy is divided into 3 trimesters, and the first trimester is 13 weeks old. And then the next second trimester is also 13 weeks, so it ends like at about 26 weeks. And then the third trimester would start at week 27, and it would go through week 40. Most babies are ready to be born by age 36 weeks to 40 weeks, 40 weeks being the average. I just put this line, and I just wanted you to know, 13 weeks, the baby is now 3 inches long. And also mention the fact that it's so tiny. And what I find amazing is the fact that when babies grow, they start off as one cell, so tiny. But what happens? They start to reproduce, the cells. The cells start to separate, and you start to get the different kinds of cells being formed, and so reproduction occurs. This is the size of a grape. It's about 1 inch. At 2 months old, 8 weeks old, the baby is about 1 inch long, the size of a grape. And you'll get that if you read books about it. Now, when the baby gets to the point where it's ready to be born, the cervix, as I said, will expand to let it out. And it'll expand to 10 centimeters. And you hear people, if you watch these medical shows, they'll say somebody is at 5 centimeters or 7 centimeters, and they're making progress in their pregnancy. The baby will not probably be able to leave the cervix until they have stretched to 10 centimeters. So here's a little drawing. This is exactly 10 centimeters. However, I don't know on television whether it's shrunk up or whether it's larger or what. So if you want to take a measuring device, if you want to take a ruler, 10 centimeters is almost 4 inches in diameter. Very, very, very close to being 4 inches in diameter, just a shade less. This would be 1 centimeter right here. This would be 5 centimeters right here, and this is 10 centimeters. When a woman gets so the cervix has dilated to 10 centimeters, then she's ready to push the baby out, and the baby can get out. So they would just watch for that. As the person is going through labor, they check and make sure to see how the cervix is dilating and how far it's dilated, because that's what it has to do. It has to be 10 centimeters, and then the woman will start to push. She'll want to push. The baby will go out. So that is generally what happens in reproduction. Now, I put this in. I'm going to run through it with you. The size of the growing baby. How big is it, and when is it a certain size? I think it was fascinating to find out. If I was pregnant, I would want to follow this along. If I knew I was 5 weeks or 8 weeks, I'd want to be able to say, well, the baby's now the size of 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever it is. So this is a 2-page diagram kind of that I've made to show you how big the baby gets in reproduction. Okay, 4 weeks old, the baby is 1/5 of an inch long. What is 1/5 of an inch? It's right here, very tiny. 5.5 weeks old, the baby is 2/3 of an inch long, right here. Now, of course, this is just, a linear thing. I've drawn it as a line. The baby wouldn't be stretched out in a line. They would be curved, they would be twisted, whatever. 8 weeks old, the baby is 1 inch the size of a grape, and that's 1 inch right there. 11 weeks old, 2 inches long. The baby is now 3/4 of an ounce in weight. Now, that's not very much. It's not even a full ounce. And that's the same as if you were holding a letter. If you were holding a stamped letter, just put it in your hand. That is the weight of 3/4 of an ounce, and that's what the baby weighs at 11 weeks old from conception. At 12 weeks old, the baby is the size of a plum. At 13 weeks old, they are 3 inches long. And 3 inches long at 13 weeks, that finishes the first trimester. I'm just showing you the size of the baby. I'll get into how the development occurs. I just want to show you the sizes right now. Whoops, I got another page here for this. I gotta get it so it'll separate. Okay, here it is. At 16 weeks old, the baby is now 6 inches long and the size of an orange. 6 inches is right here. Now, of course, the baby wouldn't be laying flat out 6 inches. They would be curved. The heads would be down a little. 18 weeks old, that's 4.5 months. Now they're 8 inches. And I just drew in this 8 inches, measured it. 20 weeks old, they're 10 inches long. 22 weeks old, they're 12 inches long. 24 weeks, they're 11 to 14 inches. They now weigh 1.5 pounds. Week 27 through 33, they're 15 inches long. They weigh 3 pounds. Week 34, they weigh 5 pounds. Week 38, they're probably about 19 inches long and around 7 pounds. They're basically ready to be born. Week 40, they're 20 inches long, weigh 7 to 8 pounds. So that's the normal progression of the size and of the baby. Now, the miracle of baby's development, I just want to review this with you. I've basically mentioned it already. After conception, 8 weeks, the baby's the size of a grape. 12 weeks, the baby's the size of a plum. 16 weeks, the baby's the size of an orange. 20 weeks, the baby's the size of a grapefruit. 28 weeks, the baby is the size of a cantaloupe. If you can just image that in your mind as the woman's body is getting bigger and bigger to accommodate the increased size of the baby. 36 weeks, it's the size of a small watermelon. That's about full size for a baby before it's born. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to stop that here, and I don't have too much time left here, so I'm going to close it here, and then next time we're going into the actual development of what happens to a baby week by week by week. until they are ready to be born. So this is going to, I think, be fascinating as background information for you. And then we're going to start after the birth. We'll get into labor and delivery, not this next time, but labor and delivery in 2 sessions from now. And then we go on the stages of development from neonate all the way up. So we'll close it here, and please join me next time.